I was 17 when everything changed. Before that night, I lived in a world painted in muted tones, where I existed as a shadow along the walls of Thompson High. My days followed predictable patterns: classes, homework, dinner with mom and dad, then retreat to my bedroom where I'd lose myself in books until sleep claimed me. I'd never questioned this rhythm. Why would I? It felt safe, comfortable even. Other girls my age seemed consumed by boys, makeup, parties, things that felt foreign to my quiet nature. When classmates discussed crushes and first kisses, I'd smile politely and change the subject, convinced romance simply wasn't meant for someone like me. My parents, Albert and Margaret Gray, never pressured me about dating. Dad worked long hours at his engineering firm, coming home exhausted, but always making time for our evening conversations. Mom managed the household with gentle efficiency, occasionally asking if any boys had caught my interest, but never pushing when I deflected her questions. The invitation to Sarah Mitchell's slumber party arrived on a Tuesday, scrawled in purple ink on vanilla-scented stationery. I almost declined immediately. Large gatherings made my stomach twist with anxiety. But something about the way Sarah had approached me, her genuine smile as she handed over the invitation, made me reconsider. "You should come, Lisa. It'll be fun, I promise." I spent the following week debating. Part of me craved connection, tired of observing life from the sidelines. Another part whispered warnings about stepping outside my comfort zone. In the end, curiosity won. That Friday evening, I packed my overnight bag with careful precision: pajamas, toiletries, a book for when the social energy became overwhelming. Mom drove me to the Mitchell house, a sprawling colonial in the suburbs where warm light spilled from every window. "Have fun, sweetheart. Call if you need anything." I watched her taillights disappear before gathering courage to ring the doorbell. The door opened to reveal chaos. Music pulsed through the house, punctuated by laughter and animated conversations. Girls from my grade clustered in various rooms, some I recognized, others mere acquaintances. I found a quiet corner in the living room, settling cross-legged on plush carpeting while observing the social dynamics unfolding around me. Boys had arrived despite this supposedly being a girls-only gathering. They lounged on sofas, attempting to impress with exaggerated stories and forced humor. Several girls gravitated toward them, giggling at jokes that weren't particularly funny, primping when certain guys glanced their way. I felt disconnected from this performance, watching as if studying some foreign ritual. When a sandy-haired boy named Kevin approached, I pretended to be engrossed in my phone until he wandered away. This happened twice more before word apparently spread that Lisa Gray wasn't interested in conversation, which suited me perfectly fine. Hours passed in this observer state. I considered calling Mom for an early pickup, already composing excuses about feeling unwell. That's when I noticed her. She stood near the kitchen doorway, dark hair cascading past her shoulders in waves that caught the light with every movement. Her friends surrounded her, the popular crowd that typically ignored my existence, yet she seemed as detached from their chatter as I felt from mine. I'd seen her around school, of course. Jessica Morrison was impossible to miss. She moved through hallways with unconscious grace, turning heads without apparent effort. Teachers smiled when she entered classrooms. Students parted naturally to let her pass. She embodied everything I wasn't: confident, beautiful, effortlessly magnetic. But tonight, something seemed different. While her friends gossiped about boys and weekend plans, her attention drifted elsewhere. Her dark eyes scanned the room with subtle restlessness, as if searching for something more interesting than the conversations swirling around her. Our gazes met across the crowded space. The connection lasted only seconds, but something shifted in that moment. My carefully constructed walls trembled. She didn't look away immediately like most people did when they accidentally caught my eye. Instead, she held the contact, her expression shifting from boredom to curiosity. Heat crept up my neck. I forced myself to break the spell, focusing intently on my hands folded in my lap. When I risked another glance, she was whispering something to her friends, gesturing vaguely in my direction. Panic flooded my system. Had I done something embarrassing? Did I have something on my face? I touched my cheek self-consciously, wishing I could disappear entirely. I gathered my belongings, planning a strategic retreat to the bathroom where I could hide until courage returned. But as I stood, preparing to navigate through clusters of partygoers, warm fingers wrapped around my wrist. "Hey!" Her voice was lower than I'd expected, with a slight rasp that sent unexpected shivers down my spine. I turned slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. Up close, Jessica Morrison was devastating. Her skin held a golden undertone that seemed to glow in the ambient lighting. Full lips curved in a half-smile, and those dark eyes that had captured mine from across the room now studied my face with uncomfortable intensity. My voice emerged as barely a whisper. I cleared my throat, tried again. "Hi, I'm Jess. What's your name?" I knew she knew. We'd shared classes since freshman year. But something about her tone suggested this wasn't about names. It was about starting fresh, creating a moment separate from school hierarchies and social expectations. "Lisa. I'm a sophomore." Her smile widened, transforming her entire face. "Nice to meet you, Lisa." The words hung between us, loaded with meaning I couldn't decipher. My cheeks burned, and I prayed the dim lighting concealed my blush. "I thought I was invisible tonight," I admitted, surprising myself with the honesty. "I tried to stay unnoticed." "Well, you failed terribly then." She stepped slightly closer, and I caught a hint of her perfume, something warm and intoxicating that made my head spin. "I've been watching you since I got here." The confession should have embarrassed me further. Instead, something warm unfurled in my chest. Jessica Morrison had been watching me. Me, Lisa Gray, the girl who blended into backgrounds and avoided attention at all costs. "The party's kind of boring," she continued, glancing around at the chaos surrounding us. I followed her gaze, taking in the scene with new eyes. Boys still competed for female attention with increasingly desperate tactics. Girls shrieked with laughter that sounded forced. The music had grown louder, conversations more animated as the evening wore on. "It really is," I agreed. "I'm not exactly the party type. I only came to try something different. Get away from schoolwork for a while." She moved closer still, close enough that I could see flecks of gold in her dark eyes, close enough that her proximity made breathing difficult. "Want to get out of here?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility. My rational mind screamed warnings. I barely knew this girl, despite years of existing in the same academic orbit. Good girls didn't disappear with popular classmates they'd just properly met. Good girls stayed in safe corners, observed from distances, went home at reasonable hours. But something about the way she looked at me, the way she'd crossed the room to initiate this conversation, made me want to be someone different. Someone brave. Yes. She led me through the house with confident navigation, past clusters of partying teenagers, up a staircase I hadn't noticed earlier. Her hand remained loosely wrapped around my wrist, warm and sure, anchoring me to this surreal moment. We stopped before a closed door at the end of the hallway. Jess glanced back at me, eyebrows raised in silent question. I nodded, though I had no idea what I was agreeing to. The door opened to reveal a spacious walk-in closet, dimly lit by a single bulb. Expensive clothes hung in organized rows, shoes lined the floor in neat pairs. It smelled like cedar and the faint remnant of that intoxicating perfume she wore. As soon as the door clicked shut behind us, The party noise faded to a distant murmur. We stood facing each other in the intimate space, and suddenly I couldn't remember how to breathe properly. "I don't usually do this," she said softly, stepping closer. "Do what?" "Talk to quiet girls at parties. Chase after someone who looks like they'd rather be anywhere else." My laugh came out shakier than intended. "I don't usually let myself get chased." She reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with gentle fingers. The simple touch sent electricity racing across my skin. "What are we doing?" I whispered. Instead of answering with words, she leaned in. Time slowed as I watched her approach, those full lips drawing closer until her breath warmed my cheek. She paused, giving me opportunity to pull away, to return to my safe corner downstairs. I didn't move. Our lips met softly at first, a question rather than a statement. I'd never kissed anyone before, had never wanted to, but this felt natural, inevitable, like something I'd been unconsciously preparing for my entire life. The kiss deepened, and rational thought abandoned me entirely. My hands found her waist, pulling her closer as she tangled her fingers in my hair. She tasted like strawberry lip gloss and possibility, and I wanted to drown in the sensation. When we finally broke apart, I was trembling. She rested her forehead against mine, both of us breathing heavily in the small space. "Wow," she breathed. I couldn't form words. My entire worldview had shifted in the span of minutes. The quiet, bookish girl who'd never been interested in romance had just experienced her first kiss with another girl, and it felt like coming home. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern threading her voice as she noticed my silence. "I've never..." I started, then stopped. How could I explain that I'd never kissed anyone, never felt desire, never understood what all the fuss was about until this moment? Understanding dawned in her eyes. "Never kissed anyone." I shook my head, embarrassment heating my cheeks. "Never kissed a girl," she pressed gently. Another head shake. She smiled, tender and reassuring. "Then I'm honored to be your first." The word first sent shivers through me, implying there would be seconds, thirds, a future I hadn't dared imagine moments ago. This time when she kissed me, I was ready. I matched her intensity, exploring this new language of lips and tongues and gentle sighs. My body responded in ways I'd never experienced, heat pooling low in my stomach, skin hypersensitive to every point of contact. Her hands roamed my back, my sides, discovering sensitive spots that made me gasp against her mouth. I'd read about desire in books, heard other girls describe attraction, but nothing had prepared me for the overwhelming need coursing through my veins. "Is this okay?" she whispered against my neck, her breath raising goosebumps along my collarbone. I could only nod, lost in sensations I couldn't name. When her fingers traced the hem of my shirt, I arched toward her touch instinctively. What happened next unfolded like a dream, or perhaps a fantasy I'd never allowed myself to acknowledge. She guided me deeper into the closet, away from the door, creating our own private universe among the hanging clothes. Her touch was reverent, patient, teaching me the geography of desire with skilled hands and whispered encouragements. I discovered parts of myself I'd never explored, responses I'd never imagined my body capable of producing. The experience was overwhelming in the most beautiful way. Every nerve ending seemed connected directly to my core, building pressure I didn't understand until it crested in waves of sensation that left me shaking and breathless. Afterward, we held each other in the dim space, my head on her shoulder, her fingers stroking my hair. I felt fundamentally changed, like I'd crossed some invisible threshold from childhood into something more complex and wonderful. "That was incredible," I managed eventually. She pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "You're incredible." Time seemed suspended as we lay intertwined among the scattered clothes. The party continued somewhere beyond our sanctuary, but it felt irrelevant, like background noise to something infinitely more important. I should probably get home, I said reluctantly, though every cell in my body protested the idea of separation. Stay, she murmured against my hair. Just a little longer. So I did. We talked in whispers about everything and nothing, her frustration with social expectations, my love of reading, the strange magnetism that had drawn us together tonight. She told me about feeling trapped by her reputation, how everyone assumed they knew who she was based on her appearance and social circle. I've never felt comfortable being myself around anyone, she admitted. Not until tonight. I understood completely. In this closet, wrapped in each other's arms, I felt more authentically myself than I had in 17 years of existence. Eventually, exhaustion claimed us both. I dozed fitfully, hyper-aware of her warm presence, the rise and fall of her breathing, the way she held me like something precious. My phone's vibrating woke me. Sunlight leaked around the closet door's edges, and the house had fallen silent except for distant sounds of cleanup. Jess stirred beside me, blinking sleepily as I fumbled for my phone. 7 missed calls from Mom. My stomach dropped. Oh God, what time is it? 9:30, Jess said, checking her own phone. Your mom was calling all night. She'll kill me. I sat up, suddenly aware of my disheveled appearance, the smell of perfume and other things clinging to my clothes. Jess stretched like a contented cat, completely unashamed of her nakedness. Her confidence amazed me. I was already reaching for scattered clothing, anxiety mounting with each passing minute. She'll come around, Jess said, watching me dress with amused eyes. The casualness of her tone shocked me. This was my first time sneaking out, first time ignoring parental calls, first time doing anything remotely rebellious. For her, it seemed routine. I like you a lot, Lisa. The admission stopped my frantic dressing. I don't want to be the reason you fight with your mom. Her directness always caught me off guard. Most people, myself included, danced around feelings implied rather than stated. Jess said exactly what she meant with refreshing honesty. How do you do that? I asked, pulling my shirt over my head. Do what? Be so open about your feelings. I can barely admit things to myself, let alone say them out loud. She shrugged, beginning her own process of getting dressed. I've always been like this. Some people call it rude or too forward. I'm glad you see it as honesty instead. I watched her move with unconscious grace, tucking her shirt in, running fingers through tousled hair. Even rumpled and makeup-free, she was stunning. I like you too, I managed, heat rising in my cheeks at the confession. A lot. You're beautiful and confident and strong. I love everything about you. She paused in smoothing her hair, meeting my eyes in the dim light. Even though we just met yesterday? Even though we just met yesterday. The smile that spread across her face could have powered the entire house. She crossed the small space between us, cupping my face in gentle hands before kissing me thoroughly. Let's get you home before angry mom sends out search parties, she said against my lips. We crept through the quiet house, past evidence of the previous night's party, empty bottles, forgotten shoes, someone passed out on the living room couch. Outside, morning air felt sharp and clean after the closet's intimate warmth. The walk to my house passed too quickly. Every step brought us closer to reality, to the inevitable questions and explanations awaiting me. Part of me wanted to turn around, disappear back into that closet where nothing existed except us. Will you come in with me? I asked as we reached my front porch. I mean, if that's okay. Don't your parents worry when you don't come home? She grinned. They haven't called yet. I think I can handle angry mom duty for my girlfriend. The word girlfriend stopped me cold. Girlfriend. Her expression shifted slightly, uncertainty creeping in. I mean, if you want. I know this is all new for you, and I don't want to assume. Yes, I interrupted, surprising us both with my vehemence. Yes, I want that. I want you to be my girlfriend. Relief and joy warred across her features. Good. Because I wasn't planning on letting you go anyway. I rang the doorbell with shaking hands. Mom answered within seconds, worry etched across her face. You have a lot of explaining to do, young lady. Where were you last night? I called and called. I'm fine, Mom. I was working on a project with my friend and decided to stay at her place since it was late. Sorry, I didn't call. Mom's eyes shifted to Jess, taking in her polished appearance despite our night of activities. And you are? I'm Jess, Mrs. Gray. It was my fault. I suggested she shouldn't walk home so late. Safety first, you know. Mom's expression softened slightly. Well, if you say so. Have you girls eaten? I was just making eggs. My stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, reminding me I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. We'll take our food upstairs, Mom. I want to talk to Jess about something. Don't take too long so the food doesn't get cold. Once in my room, I barely managed to lock the door before Jess's lips found mine again. The kiss was hungry, desperate, as if the brief separation downstairs had been unbearable. I missed you, she breathed against my mouth. We were apart for 5 minutes. 5 minutes too long. I guided her toward my bathroom, suddenly desperate to wash away any lingering evidence of our night together while creating new memories to replace them. Under the warm spray, we explored each other's bodies with renewed curiosity, learning preferences and sensitive spots. The experience was different in daylight, more intense somehow. I felt bold enough to initiate touches, to map the curve of her spine with my tongue, to discover what sounds she made when I found particularly responsive areas. Time ceased meaning anything beyond the slide of soap-slick skin and the building pressure between my legs. When release finally claimed me, I bit down on her shoulder to muffle my cries, acutely aware of my parents somewhere below us. Afterward, we stood under the cooling water, holding each other as our breathing returned to normal. I could do this forever, I admitted. Me too. Reality intruded in the form of my mother calling up the stairs. Girls, the food's getting cold. We dressed hastily, attempting to make our hair look less like we'd spent the morning having sex in the shower. I kept catching glimpses of myself in the mirror, amazed by the girl looking back, flushed cheeks, bright eyes, lips swollen from kissing. I looked like someone who'd been thoroughly loved. Downstairs, Mom had set places for 3 at our small kitchen table. The domestic normalcy felt surreal after the intensity of the past 12 hours. So Jess, Mom began, settling into her chair, you seem like a smart young lady. How are your studies? I hope you don't let boys distract you from your education. I nearly choked on my orange juice. Beside me, Jess remained perfectly composed. Oh, they try, she said with a slight smile. But I only have eyes for one person. She looked directly at me as she spoke, and my stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. Was she really going to? Well, focus on your future first, Mom continued, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. Romance can wait. Absolutely, Jess agreed, still holding my gaze. Though sometimes you can't help what you feel, can you? The conversation continued in this vein, Jess skillfully navigating questions while sending me meaningful looks that made concentration impossible. By the time we finished eating, I felt ready to explode from nervous energy. Mom, I said as we cleared dishes, how would you feel if I liked girls? The question hung in the air like a dropped bomb. Mom froze, plate halfway to the sink. Jess went very still beside me. Honey, are you into girls? I'm just asking hypothetically. How would you feel about it? Oh my God, Lisa. How can you be into girls? There are plenty of boys. I was just asking a question. Why are you acting like this? Wait. Mom's eyes darted between Jess and me, pieces clicking together. Are you too? I took a shaky breath, gathering courage from somewhere deep inside. Yes, Mom. She's my girlfriend. The silence stretched endlessly. Mom's face cycled through shock, confusion, disappointment, and something that might have been disgust. Each expression hit me like a slap. Sweetie, why would you choose this? This is disgraceful to our family. The words echoed in my head as Jess quietly stood. I should go, she said, voice carefully neutral. No. I grabbed her hand, holding tight. You're not going anywhere. Something shifted in me then, a strength I'd never accessed before. Maybe it was Jess's influence, or maybe discovering love had unlocked courage I didn't know I possessed. Mom, I didn't choose this any more than I chose my eye color. I wasn't even aware of it until recently. Why can't you just accept me the way I am? Does liking girls make me less your daughter? Mom looked genuinely torn, love for me warring with deeply held beliefs. I can't believe this, she whispered finally, then walked away. I'm sorry you had to see that, I said to Jess, mortification burning my cheeks. Look who's all grown up, she replied with a small smile. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. For us. When did we talk about dating? She added with mock sternness. Panic fluttered in my chest. We're not? Oh God, I'm sorry, I thought. She silenced me with a kiss, soft and reassuring. Relax. When did I say we weren't? I just didn't know you were ready for labels, considering how new this all is for you. Relief flooded through me. Of course I want you to be my girlfriend. Good. Because I wasn't giving you a choice anyway. We held each other for a long moment, the kitchen suddenly feeling too small for the magnitude of what had just happened. I should probably leave, Jess said reluctantly. Give things time to settle down. Okay. I'll call you later. You better. She kissed me goodbye at the door, soft and lingering, and I watched her walk away until she disappeared around the corner. The house felt oppressive after Jess left. Mom had disappeared into her bedroom, and I could hear muffled phone conversations through the door, probably calling Dad or her sister for advice on how to handle her suddenly complicated daughter. I retreated to my room, still processing everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, I'd been a shy sophomore who'd never been kissed. Today, I had a girlfriend and had come out to my mother in the most dramatic way possible. My phone buzzed with a text from Jess. You okay? That was intense. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, I'm okay. Thank you for staying. Always. You were amazing today. So brave. The words made my chest warm. Brave wasn't typically associated with Lisa Gray, but maybe that was changing too. Dad came home later than usual, his key in the lock announcing the end of my reprieve. I heard hushed voices downstairs, Mom filling him in, no doubt, followed by heavy footsteps on the stairs. His knock was gentle. Sweetie, can we talk? Come in, Dad. He settled on my bed with the careful movements of someone preparing for a difficult conversation. Dad had always been my safe harbor, the parent I could talk to about anything. But this felt different, bigger than our usual heart-to-hearts. Your mother told me about today, he began. About Jess. I studied his face, searching for judgment or disappointment. Instead, I found only concern and love. How are you feeling? He asked. The question surprised me. Not, are you sure, or is this just a phase, just genuine curiosity about my emotional state. Confused, I admitted. Scared. But also happy? I know it's weird, Dad. I know it's not what you expected. He was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. You know, I've always wanted you to find someone who makes you smile the way you smiled today. Someone who brings out your confidence. My eyes filled with unexpected tears. You're not disappointed? Never. He pulled me into a hug that smelled like aftershave and safety. I love you exactly as you are. I just want to make sure you're being careful, making smart choices. This is all new for you. It is, I agreed. But it feels right, Dad. For the first time in my life, something feels completely right. Then that's enough for me. He kissed the top of my head. Your mom's struggling, but she'll come around. Give her time. What if she doesn't? She will. She loves you more than her discomfort with change. Trust me on this. After he left, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment since Jess had first taken my hand. The girl in that closet felt like someone else, confident, sensual, brave enough to reach for what she wanted. I wanted to be that girl all the time, not just in stolen moments with Jess. 3 days passed before Mom approached me. I'd been giving her space, eating breakfast after she'd finished, staying in my room during evening TV time. The house felt like we were walking on eggshells, everyone hyper-aware of the new tension. She found me in the kitchen Saturday morning, making toast before settling in to study. "Lisa," she said softly, "I owe you an apology." I looked up, surprised by the sadness in her voice. "I handled things poorly the other day. I was shocked, and I said things I didn't mean. You said it was disgraceful." She winced. "That was wrong of me. You're not disgraceful. You're my daughter, and I love you no matter what." The words I'd been holding back for days finally spilled over. "I didn't choose this, Mom. I didn't wake up one day and decide to make things difficult. It just happened. Meeting Jess, feeling the way I feel, it's not something I can turn off." "I know." She sat across from me, reaching for my hands. "I've had time to think, and I realize I was more concerned about what other people would say than your happiness. That's not fair to you." Relief washed over me. "So you're okay with this?" "With Jess and me. I'm trying to be. It's an adjustment, but seeing how happy you've been, even in these few days, you seem different. More confident." She was right. Even dealing with family drama, I felt more solid in myself than ever before. Having Jess in my life had awakened something fundamental that I couldn't imagine living without. "I'd like Jess to come to dinner next week," Mom continued. "I want to get to know her properly, apologize for my reaction." My smile could have powered the entire neighborhood. "She'd like that." "Good. And Lisa? I'm proud of you for being honest with us." That took courage. That afternoon, I called Jess with the good news. Her excitement bubbled through the phone, infectious and warm. "I told you she'd come around," she said. "Parents usually do, once they see their kid is happy." "What about your parents? How do you think they'll react?" There was a pause. "My dad's pretty easygoing. He mostly wants me to graduate and stay out of trouble. As for my mom..." Another pause, longer this time. "My mom died when I was 14. The confession hit me like ice water. In all our conversations, she'd never mentioned this fundamental fact about her life. "Jess, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "It's okay. I don't usually bring it up right away. Tends to make people uncomfortable." "What was she like?" "Beautiful. Strong. Funny as hell." Her voice carried warmth and sadness in equal measure. "She would have loved you. She always said I needed someone who could keep up with me intellectually." "I can barely keep up with you at all," I protested, making her laugh. "You keep up just fine, trust me." The following Tuesday, Jess arrived for dinner bearing flowers for Mom and a bottle of wine for Dad. Her natural charm was in full display, and I watched my parents fall under her spell just as I had. "Mrs. Gray, I want to apologize for the other day," she said as we settled around the dinner table. "I know our relationship is unexpected, and I don't want to cause problems in your family." "Oh, honey, you don't need to apologize. I'm the one who overreacted." Mom passed the salad bowl, studying Jess with new eyes. "Tell me about your family." "Your parents must be proud of your grades." "My dad's pretty great. Works too much, but he means well." Jess's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "My mom passed away a few years ago." The simple words carried such weight. I reached under the table, squeezing her hand in silent support. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry," Mom said, genuine sympathy softening her features. "Thank you." She was a lot like you, actually. Warm, protective of family. She would have grilled Lisa mercilessly before deciding she was good enough for me. Everyone laughed, tension easing around the table. Dad launched into stories about my childhood, embarrassing anecdotes that made Jess grin and squeeze my hand tighter. After dinner, we retreated to my room under the pretense of studying. In reality, we lay on my bed talking about everything and nothing, her head on my shoulder, my fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "Your parents are wonderful," she said. "Your mom reminds me so much of mine." "Tell me about her." So she did. Stories about weekend shopping trips, elaborate Halloween costumes, the way her mother sang off-key while cooking. I could see where Jess got her confidence, her directness, her unwavering belief in going after what she wanted. "She got sick when I was 13, Jess continued, voice growing quieter. "Leukemia. It happened fast, diagnosed in January, gone by October. I barely had time to process what was happening." I held her tighter, wishing I could absorb some of that old pain. "She made me promise I wouldn't let anyone dim my light," Jess whispered. "Said life was too short to pretend to be someone you're not." "She sounds incredible." She was. "She would have adored you." We lay in comfortable silence for a while, processing the weight of shared vulnerabilities. This was what I'd been missing all those years, this deep connection, this safety to be completely honest with another person. "I love you," I said suddenly, the words escaping before I could stop them. Jess went very still against me. My heart hammered as I realized what I'd just confessed. "I'm sorry," I started. "I know it's too soon, we've only known each other a few days." "Lisa." She shifted to face me, dark eyes intense in the lamplight. "I love you too." The words hung between us, precious and terrifying. This was uncharted territory, love at 17, love with another girl, love that felt too big for my inexperienced heart. "Is that crazy?" I whispered. "Probably." She smiled, thumb tracing my cheekbone. "But I've never felt anything like this before. I've never wanted to know everything about someone, never felt like I could talk for hours and still have more to say." "I know exactly what you mean." She kissed me then, soft and reverent, like sealing a promise. In that moment, my bedroom felt like the center of the universe. The months that followed were a whirlwind of discovery. I threw myself into the experience of being someone's girlfriend with the same intensity one brought to academic pursuits. Every moment with Jess felt like research into a subject I was desperate to master. We developed our own language of glances across hallways, secret smiles during classes we shared, subtle touches that sent electricity through my nervous system. The popular kids who'd never noticed me before suddenly knew my name, the whether as Jess's girlfriend or that weird quiet girl who'd somehow landed Jessica Morrison remained unclear. I didn't care. Having Jess choose me, publicly and repeatedly, built confidence I'd never possessed. I found myself speaking up in class discussions, joining her at lunch tables I'd previously avoided, even attending a few more parties where I no longer hid in corners. "You're different," she observed one afternoon as we studied in my room. "More present." "Different how?" "Before, you seemed like you were watching life happen to everyone else. Now you're participating." She was right. The world felt more vivid with her in it, colors brighter, experiences more intense. Even mundane activities like grocery shopping or waiting for the bus became opportunities for shared jokes and stolen kisses. Our physical relationship deepened as well. The initial awkwardness of learning each other's bodies gave way to growing confidence and creativity. I discovered I had appetites I'd never suspected, desires that surprised even me with their intensity. Jess proved an enthusiastic and patient teacher, encouraging my exploration while sharing her own discoveries. We spent countless hours in my room after school, supposedly doing homework, but inevitably drawn to each other with magnetic pull. I never knew I could feel like this, I confessed one evening, still breathless from our latest encounter. Like what? She asked, trailing fingers along my spine. Complete. Like every piece of me finally fits together properly. She understood. We'd both stumbled into something neither had expected, this perfect compatibility that extended far beyond attraction into emotional and intellectual synchronicity. Spring arrived with unprecedented warmth, and we celebrated my 18th birthday with a picnic in the park. Mom had packed elaborate sandwiches and homemade cookies, treating the occasion like a major holiday. Dad gave me car keys, a used Honda Civic that represented freedom I'd never dared imagine. Now you can drive to see me instead of walking everywhere, Jess said, admiring the modest vehicle like it was a luxury sports car. The car opened new possibilities. We could escape town boundaries, explore neighboring areas, find private spaces away from watchful eyes and small-town gossip. Our relationship, while accepted by my family, still drew attention at school and around town that sometimes felt suffocating. We spent lazy Saturday afternoons driving to parks and beaches, talking about the future with increasing excitement. College applications loomed, and the question of whether we'd attend the same schools created underlying tension neither wanted to acknowledge directly. "Where are you thinking of applying?" I asked one day as we sat on a secluded beach, watching waves crash against weathered rocks. "State schools mostly. Maybe that arts program in Sacramento." She picked up a piece of sea glass, holding it to the light. "What about you?" "I've been looking at pre-med programs. UCLA has an excellent reputation." The distance between Sacramento and Los Angeles hung unspoken in the salt air. "We'll figure it out," she said finally. "Whatever happens, we'll make it work." I wanted to believe her optimism, but college felt like a looming threat to our carefully constructed world. My senior year brought unexpected complications. Academic pressure intensified as graduation approached, and I found myself torn between spending time with Jess and maintaining the grades necessary for college admission. She'd entered her senior year as well, having transferred schools to be closer to me, a grand romantic gesture that initially thrilled me but gradually created pressure I hadn't anticipated. Now we shared most classes, ate lunch together daily, walked the same hallways between periods. What had once felt exciting began feeling claustrophobic. "You're pulling away," she accused one afternoon when I'd chosen to study alone instead of our usual together time. "I'm not pulling away. I just need to focus on applications. We used to study together all the time. Now you act like I'm a distraction." She wasn't wrong. Her presence did make concentration difficult, not because she was disruptive, but because every cell in my body remained hyper-aware of her proximity. The brush of her fingers when passing papers, the scent of her shampoo, the way she bit her lip while thinking, all of it conspired to make academic focus nearly impossible. "I'm sorry," I said, reaching for her hand. "I'm just stressed about getting into a good program." "I know. I just miss you, even when you're right next to me." The conversation highlighted a growing tension between us. Jess approached life with intuitive confidence, trusting things would work out because they always had. I planned obsessively, needing backup plans for my backup plans. These differences had once felt complementary, now they created friction. Our first real fight erupted over something ridiculous: whether to attend Jake Morrison's graduation party. Half the senior class would be there, including college scouts and influential family friends who might provide networking opportunities. "It'll be fun," Jess argued. "We never go anywhere together anymore. I have 3 applications due Monday. I can't waste an entire weekend partying." "One night won't destroy your future, Lisa." Easy for you to say. You already know what you want to do. Some of us have to work harder for opportunities. The words came out harsher than intended, hitting her like a thunderbolt. I immediately regretted the implication that her path was somehow easier than mine. "That's not fair," she said quietly. "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." She gathered her books, preparing to leave. "Maybe you need to figure out what you actually want, because right now it feels like I'm just getting in the way." She left me sitting in my room, surrounded by college brochures and half-completed essays, wondering how we'd gone from perfect harmony to this painful discord. We didn't speak for 3 days. The silence felt unbearable, but pride prevented either of us from making the first move toward reconciliation. I threw myself into applications with renewed intensity, using academic pressure to avoid confronting the growing distance between us. Mom noticed the tension immediately. "You've been moping around here like someone died. Did you and Jess have a fight?" "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" I found myself spilling everything. The pressure, the fear of growing apart, the way our different approaches to the future were creating conflict where none had existed before. "Relationships require compromise," Mom said gently. "But they also require both people to remain true to themselves. Maybe you need to have an honest conversation about what you both want. What if what we want is too different? Then you'll figure it out together. That's what people who love each other do." Her words gave me courage to call Jess that evening. We met at our old spot in the park, sitting on swings like children while trying to navigate very adult problems. "I hate fighting with you," I said without preamble. "Me too. These past few days have been miserable. I'm sorry for what I said about your future being easier. That was unfair and untrue." She nodded, accepting the apology. "I'm sorry for pushing when you needed space. I know how important college is to you." We swayed gently on the swings, evening air cooling around us as we worked toward understanding. "I'm scared," I admitted. "About college, about the future, about us. Everything feels so uncertain." "I'm scared too," she said. "Scared of losing you to some pre-med program across the state. Scared that you'll meet other people and realize I was just some high school phase." The vulnerability in her voice made my chest ache. This confident, beautiful girl who seemed to glide through life without effort was just as terrified as I was. "You're not a phase," I said firmly. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." "Then why does it feel like you're preparing to leave me behind?" The question hung between us, brutally honest and impossible to answer easily. Because part of me was doing exactly that, protecting myself against future hurt by creating distance now. "I don't know how to do this," I confessed. "Balance loving you and building my future. I've never had to juggle priorities like this before. Maybe we don't have to balance them. Maybe we just have to trust that if we're meant to be together, we'll find a way." "What if trust isn't enough?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I'd rather try and fail than give up before we even see what's possible." Her optimism was infectious, reminding me why I'd fallen for her in the first place. We agreed to communicate better, to make time for each other despite academic pressures, to face the future together rather than retreating into individual anxiety. The resolution felt fragile but precious, like something requiring careful tending to survive. Spring brought acceptance letters and agonizing decisions. UCLA accepted me into their competitive pre-med program, a dream come true that felt hollow without Jess beside me to celebrate. She'd been accepted to several schools, including the Sacramento Arts Program and a smaller liberal arts college just hours from Los Angeles. The choice seemed obvious, but she hesitated in ways that made my stomach clench with worry. "Sacramento's program is more prestigious," she explained as we drove aimlessly through town, putting off the conversation we both knew was coming. "But you'd be happy at either school, right?" "Probably." The word carried weight she wasn't acknowledging. I pulled into an empty parking lot, turning to face her fully. "Jess, what do you really want?" She was quiet for so long I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I want to go to Sacramento. The program there is everything I've dreamed of: small classes, amazing faculty, connections in the art world I'd never get elsewhere. Each word felt like a small knife between my ribs. Then you should go. Just like that. Just like that. I tried to keep my voice steady despite the way my world was crumbling. This is your chance to become the artist you've always wanted to be. I won't be the reason you give up your dreams. What about us? We'll figure it out. The words echoed her earlier optimism, but neither of us believed them anymore. Sacramento to Los Angeles was manageable distance, but the programs we'd chosen were demanding, leaving little time for long-distance relationships. I love you, she said, tears finally spilling over. I love you too. That's why I want you to go. We held each other in my car as the sun set around us, both understanding this was the beginning of the end of our high school love story. Our last summer together felt bittersweet, every moment tinged with approaching separation. We tried to pretend things were normal, spending days at the beach, evenings on my back porch talking until dawn, nights tangled together in my bed making promises we weren't sure we could keep. We could call every day, I suggested during one of many conversations about maintaining our relationship. Every day, she agreed, though doubt clouded her expression. And visits. Los Angeles to Sacramento isn't that far. For hours. Totally doable. We were trying to convince ourselves as much as each other, building elaborate plans for a future that felt increasingly unlikely as August approached. The night before she left for college orientation, we lay in my bed not sleeping, memorizing the feeling of being together. Promise me something, she whispered against my shoulder. Anything. Promise you won't forget this. Us. What we had here. Never. Even when you meet some brilliant pre-med student who shares all your interests and ambitions? Especially then. She kissed my collarbone, salt tears mixing with familiar perfume. I don't want to lose you. You won't. We're just expanding our world a little. Morning came too quickly, bringing parents and packed cars and tearful goodbyes that felt too much like permanent farewells. I watched her drive away, waving until her car disappeared around the corner, then sat on my front steps crying until Mom brought me tissues and hot chocolate. First love is the hardest to let go, she said, settling beside me. We're not letting go. We're just taking a break. Mom's smile was gentle and sad. Of course, sweetheart. UCLA's campus overwhelmed me initially. Sprawling buildings, thousands of students, academic intensity that made high school seem like gentle preparation. I threw myself into studies with characteristic determination, using course load as distraction from the just-shaped hole in my daily routine. We talked regularly those first few weeks, sharing stories about roommates and professors, new experiences, and growing independence. But conversations gradually grew shorter, less frequent, interrupted by conflicting schedules and new social obligations. I joined the campus LGBTQ group, she told me during one of our phone calls. There's this senior, Naomi, who's been showing me around. She's really cool. Thinks I should submit work to the student gallery. Something cold settled in my stomach at the enthusiasm in her voice when she mentioned this Naomi person. That's great, I managed. I'm glad you're making friends. What about you? Meeting anyone interesting? I thought about my study group partners, the girl in my chemistry lab who'd invited me for drinks, the general social whirl I'd been avoiding in favor of academic focus. A few people. Mostly just studying, though. You should get out more. College is about more than grades. The advice stung, implying I was missing out on essential experiences by maintaining my naturally introverted tendencies. Our conversations began following this pattern: forced updates about surface-level activities, careful avoidance of deeper emotional terrain. The easy intimacy we'd shared was being replaced by polite distance that hurt more than outright conflict would have. October brought midterms and a week-long communication gap. When Jess finally called, her voice sounded different, excited and guilty in equal measure. "I have something to tell you," she began, and my stomach dropped. "Okay." There was this party last weekend. A really wild college party, nothing like the ones we went to in high school. I had too much to drink, and there was this game of truth or dare. I closed my eyes, already knowing where this story was heading. I was dared to kiss someone. Naomi. And I was drunk, and I wasn't thinking clearly, and her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Lisa. It meant nothing, but I couldn't hide it from you." The words hit me like ice water. My girlfriend, my first love, the person who'd awakened every desire I'd ever felt, had kissed someone else. "Did you sleep with her?" Silence stretched between us before she whispered, "Yes." "Get out." The words came from somewhere primal and wounded. "Just get out of my life." "Lisa, please." "No. I can't do this." I hung up and immediately turned off my phone, not trusting myself not to call back and say things I'd regret. The pain was overwhelming, worse than any physical injury I'd experienced. This was betrayal and abandonment, and the end of innocence all rolled into one devastating blow. For days I moved through classes like a zombie, mechanically taking notes and completing assignments, while my inner world collapsed. My roommate eventually forced me to eat something more substantial than crackers, threatening to call my parents if I didn't start taking care of myself. "Bad breakup?" she asked gently. "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" I found myself spilling the entire story. High school love affair, long-distance struggles, devastating betrayal. She listened without judgment, occasionally offering tissues when tears overwhelmed my ability to speak. "That sucks," she said finally. "But you know what? First relationships rarely survive the college transition. It doesn't mean what you had wasn't real or important. It feels like it was all a lie. No, it feels like you're 18 and heartbroken, and everything seems more dramatic than it actually is." Her tone was kind but realistic. "Give it time. The pain will fade." I wanted to believe her, but the ache felt permanent, carved into my bones. Jess called repeatedly over the following weeks. I ignored every attempt at contact, deleting voicemails without listening, letting calls go straight to voicemail. My heart wasn't ready for her explanations or apologies. Instead, I focused on building a new identity separate from our relationship. I joined study groups, attended campus events, even went to a few parties where I nursed single drinks and practiced small talk with strangers. Slowly, gradually, the sharp edge of pain began to dull. I discovered I could go entire hours without thinking about her, then entire days. The constant ache in my chest faded to occasional pangs triggered by specific memories or songs. "You seem better," my roommate observed one evening as I returned from dinner with classmates. "I feel better. Not good, but functional." That's progress. It was. Each small step away from our shared past felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I'd forgotten existed. I'd been Lisa and Jess for so long that rediscovering solo Lisa required conscious effort. November brought unexpected developments. During a late-night study session at the library, I struck up conversation with another pre-med student named Sarah. She was brilliant, driven, funny in subtle ways that snuck up on you. We began studying together regularly, then grabbing meals, then spending time together that had nothing to do with academics. "I like you," she said one evening as we walked across campus. "I like you too. I mean, I like you romantically." In case that wasn't clear. My heart stuttered. After months of emotional numbness, the possibility of new attraction felt foreign and slightly terrifying. "I'm flattered," I said carefully, "but I'm not sure I'm ready for anything serious." Who said anything about serious? I'm thinking dinner and maybe some making out. Very low pressure. Her directness reminded me painfully of Jess, but also made me smile for the first time in weeks. Dinner sounds nice. That first date felt like stepping into sunlight after months in a cave. Sarah was easy to talk to, intellectually stimulating, comfortable with her own sexuality in ways that put me at ease. When she kissed me goodnight, it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like possibility. So, my roommate asked when I returned to our dorm. So what? Don't play coy. How was your date with the cute pre-med girl? Nice, I admitted. Really nice. Good. You deserve nice. Winter break brought the annual return home, where everything looked smaller than I remembered. My room felt like a shrine to my former self, photos of Jess and me scattered across surfaces, her sweatshirt still hanging in my closet, memories embedded in every corner. Mom found me sitting on my bed, holding a picture from last summer. How are you doing, sweetheart? Better. Some days are harder than others. She sat beside me, studying the photo of two laughing girls who looked impossibly young. You know, your father and I weren't each other's first loves. I looked at her in surprise. They'd been together since college, married straight after graduation. I'd always assumed they were each other's only significant relationship. I dated a boy named Michael all through high school, she continued. Thought I'd marry him, have his babies, live happily ever after. When we broke up freshman year of college, I was devastated. Couldn't imagine ever loving anyone else. What happened? Life happened. I grew up, met new people, discovered parts of myself I'd never explored. When I met your father junior year, what I felt was completely different from high school infatuation, deeper, more mature, based on compatibility rather than just attraction. So you think what I had with Jess was just infatuation? I think what you had with Jess was beautiful and real and exactly what you needed at that time in your life. But people change, especially during college years. Sometimes love isn't enough to bridge growing in different directions. Her words made sense intellectually, though emotionally I still missed the intensity of first love. Are you seeing anyone new? She asked gently. Sort of. There's this girl, Sarah. We're taking things slow. Good. There's no rush to figure everything out at 18. Christmas Eve brought an unexpected gift, a letter from Jess with no return address. I held it for hours before finding courage to open it. Lisa, I know you don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. What I did was unforgivable, and I've regretted it every single day since it happened. I won't make excuses. I was drunk and stupid and missing you so much I couldn't think straight. None of that justifies betraying your trust. I want you to know that what we had was the most real thing I've ever experienced. You changed my life in ways I'm still discovering. Meeting you taught me what love actually felt like, and I'll always be grateful for that gift. I hope college is everything you dreamed it would be. I hope you're happy and challenged and growing into the incredible woman I always knew you'd become. I love you. I'll always love you. But I understand if you can't forgive me. Jess. P.S. I'm transferring schools. Sacramento wasn't the right fit, and staying in California feels too close to our memories. I need to start fresh somewhere else. Reading her words reopened wounds I'd thought were healing, but also provided closure I hadn't realized I needed. She was moving on too, finding her own path away from our shared past. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my jewelry box next to other precious things. Then I called Sarah and asked if she wanted to go see a movie. I'd love to, she said, warmth evident in her voice. Good. It's time I started making new memories. Spring semester brought renewed energy and focus. My relationship with Sarah deepened gradually, built on shared goals and compatible personalities rather than the overwhelming passion I'd experienced with Jess. It felt healthier, more sustainable, though sometimes I missed the intensity of first love. Do you think about her much? Sarah asked one evening as we studied in my room. The question surprised me with its directness. We touched on my past relationship in general terms, but never discussed specifics. Sometimes, I admitted. Less than I used to, but yeah, sometimes. That's normal. First loves leave impressions. I studied her face, looking for jealousy or insecurity. Instead, I found understanding and maturity that spoke to why this relationship felt different. Does it bother you? No more than knowing I occasionally think about my ex-girlfriend from sophomore year. Memories don't threaten present reality unless you let them. Her attitude helped me process lingering guilt about maintaining feelings for Jess while building something new with Sarah. Love wasn't finite. Caring about one person didn't diminish capacity to care about another. As months passed, I found myself thinking about Jess less frequently, her memory becoming gentle nostalgia rather than sharp pain. I wondered where she'd transferred, whether she was happy if she thought about me too. But the wondering felt peaceful rather than desperate. By the time sophomore year began, I felt solidly rooted in my new life. Sarah and I had decided to room together, combining study habits and relationship with natural ease. I declared my major officially, joined pre-med society, even made friends outside academic circles. The girl who'd hidden in corners at high school parties seemed like someone from another lifetime. 3 years later, I was preparing for medical school interviews when an unexpected message appeared on my social media. Hi, Lisa. I know this is out of nowhere, but I'm going to be in LA next week for a gallery showing. Would you want to get lunch? I understand if you'd rather not. Jess. I stared at the message for hours, emotions cycling through surprise, anxiety, curiosity, and something that might have been excitement. Sarah found me in our apartment kitchen, phone in hand, expression frozen. Everything okay? Jess wants to meet for lunch. Sarah's eyebrows rose, but her expression remained neutral. How do you feel about that? I have no idea. Terrified? Curious? I thought I was completely over her, but seeing her name made my stomach flip. What does your gut tell you? I considered the question seriously. What did I want from this encounter? Closure? Validation that I'd moved on successfully? Simple curiosity about how she'd changed? I think I want to see her, I said slowly. Not because I want to rekindle anything, but because she was such a huge part of my life. It feels strange to have this person who meant everything to me become a complete mystery. Then go. See her. Just remember who you are now versus who you were then. The advice proved invaluable. When I walked into the restaurant where we'd agreed to meet, I felt solidly centered in my current identity. Successful pre-med student, loving girlfriend to Sarah, confident young woman with clear goals and healthy relationships. Jess was already seated, and seeing her after 3 years felt surreal. She looked different, hair shorter, style more sophisticated, an air of artistic confidence I remembered, but which seemed more developed now. She was still beautiful, but the sight of her didn't knock me off balance the way it once would have. Lisa. She stood as I approached, uncertainty in her smile. You look amazing. Thank you. So do you. We embraced briefly, an awkward hug between former lovers who'd become strangers. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she said as we settled into our seats. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, honestly. She ordered wine. I stuck with water. The symbolism felt appropriate. She remained comfortable with indulgence, while I maintained careful control. How's medical school preparation going? She asked. Really well. I've got interviews at several programs, including some excellent ones here in California. That's incredible. I always knew you'd achieve everything you set out to do. The pride in her voice was genuine, and I felt grateful that our history hadn't left her bitter about my success. What about you? Our career treating you well? Her smile was radiant. Better than I ever imagined. I'm actually showing pieces in a gallery downtown this weekend. Some of my paintings are selling to collectors. It feels surreal. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. And I was. Whatever complicated feelings remained between us, I genuinely wanted her to be happy and fulfilled. I owe you an apology, she said, her tone growing more serious. A better one than that letter I sent years ago. Jess, you don't. Please. Let me say this. I nodded, settling back in my chair. What I did in college was inexcusable. You trusted me completely, and I betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. I was selfish and immature, and I hurt the person who meant most to me in the world. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I know it doesn't change anything, but I want you to know that I learned from it. I've never treated anyone that way since. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Thank you, I said quietly, for saying that. It means a lot. Are you happy now? She asked. In love with someone who treats you properly? I thought about Sarah, about our steady relationship built on mutual respect and shared goals. I am very happy. Good. You deserve all the happiness in the world. We spent the next hour catching up on safe topics, mutual friends from high school, family updates, career developments. The conversation felt friendly but distant, like meeting a childhood friend you'd outgrown. When we parted ways outside the restaurant, our goodbye hug felt more natural. Take care of yourself, she said. You too. Good luck with the gallery showing. I watched her walk away one final time, but this departure felt peaceful rather than devastating. We'd both grown into different people, and the love we'd shared belonged to our younger selves. Driving home, I felt lighter somehow, as if a chapter had finally closed properly. 5 years after that lunch meeting, I was completing my residency at a prestigious hospital when I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Dr. Lisa Gray was invited to celebrate the marriage of Jessica Morrison and Amanda Chin. I smiled, genuinely happy that Jess had found someone to share her life with. The invitation included a personal note. You helped shape who I am today, and I'll always be grateful for that gift. Sarah, now my wife of 2 years, found me holding the invitation in our kitchen. From the famous ex? She asked with amusement. The very one. She's getting married. Are you going to attend? I considered it briefly, then shook my head. I don't think so. We've both moved on completely. Some stories are meant to end with closure rather than continued contact. Probably wise. That evening, I drafted a response declining the invitation, but wishing them both tremendous happiness. Before sealing the envelope, I added a final line. Thank you for awakening desires I didn't know I had. It led me to everything I treasure now. Looking back, I could see how each experience had built upon the last. Jess had introduced me to love, passion, and my own sexuality. The heartbreak that followed had taught me resilience and self-reliance. Sarah had shown me mature partnership and sustainable happiness. All of it had been necessary, each chapter contributing to the woman I'd become. That night, I held Sarah close in our bed, grateful for the journey that had led me to this moment. First love had been intense and transformative, but lasting love was something entirely different, built on compatibility, respect, and shared dreams rather than just overwhelming chemistry. I love you, I whispered against her shoulder. I love you too, she murmured back. And I knew, with complete certainty, that this was where I belonged. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if Jess and I had made different choices, if we'd found ways to grow together instead of apart. But those thoughts held no pain anymore, only gentle curiosity about alternate paths not taken. The shy girl who'd hidden in corners at high school parties had become a confident woman, secure in her identity and her choices. Love had awakened desires I'd never imagined, but more importantly, it had awakened courage, self-knowledge, and the ability to build meaningful connections with others. That was Jess's true gift to me, Not just first love, but first understanding of my own capacity for love. For that awakening, I would always be grateful.